Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Pointy Not Sharp. Today we're taking a look at the Swedish model of 1896 bayonet. Now these were initially made to fit the 6.5mm model of 1886 Swedish Mauser. However, they'd also go on to fit the model 1938 short rifle and the AG-42B Jungmann self-loading rifle. I'm not a fan of the Jungmann. I've played with a couple and they scare the crap out of me. But anyway, back to these bayonets. So they're made by three manufacturers. They're made by, I won't pronounce this correctly, Eskilstuna German manufacturer, AB, and they made them from the early years from 1899 through to 1912. They're made by Carl Gustaf, which actually I think this one here is made by Carl Gustaf. And they made them from 1913 onwards. I'm not entirely certain when. And finally, they're also made by Eric Anton Berg, and that's the least common manufacturer, and that's what I'm lucky enough to have just here. Now, these were in service for a very, very long time. I've read some sources that have said up to 100 years they were in service. But from what I can tell, they were definitely in service from the late 1890s through till at least the mid-1960s. Now, while they are called the model of 1896, they weren't actually adopted until a year or two after that. I think there's like a year or two of sorting out the manufacturing or what have you. But anyway, we'll jump into the actual construction of the bayonet, and it's a very, very unique design for the time. Now, if you've seen my other videos, the 1880s was when the first knife bayonet started to appear. So this is about 10 years after the adoption of the first knife bayonets. But to have this design here was just very radical, very, very crazy for the time, in my opinion. But they've gone to a nice short knife blade, but the handle itself is steel construction and hollow. See if I can get the lighting down there. I don't think I will, but as you can see, it's kind of like a little square nut down the base. And they come in three pieces. You have the handle, the crossguard, and the blade, and they'd be delivered to a unit in three pieces with manufacturing numbers so they can be paired up. And they'd actually be constructed by an armourer at the unit. But very, very light, very, very solid. Probably the first knife bayonet to not have like a wooden handle or a brass handle, but very cool, very futuristic little design there. And despite how it looks, I was actually under the impression for the longest time that this was a double-sided blade. It's not. It's a single-sided blade, and then we've got a very thin spine with a slight true edge. Fuller running down the center of the blade. That's what's always misled me, as well as sort of the shape of the ricasso here, because the blade does thin out a little bit towards the top. But yeah, very, very cool little blade. I like it. Moving down to the crossguard, you can see exactly what it is. It's just a steel crossguard with a slightly quilled back quilling and muzzle ring. And as I've already explained, we've got a steel tubular handle that's just screwed on, I think, and it's just been like knurled or crosshatched or whatever you want to call it on the handle for retention. Slightly raised out down by the pommel. Got a little divot here at the top, which I assume is to actually, you know what, I don't have a clue what that's for. Possibly to accommodate the base of the barrel of the rifle, I don't know. And then this one doesn't. I'll get the other one. But they have this little retention device at the base, and the way it works is clip it onto the rifle and this pops out and locks in. And there were two versions of this device. The early ones were like a little flat, I don't know, like nail head almost kind of thing, and then later they moved on to the conical, which is what we have here. This is the same as what you'll find on like the Egyptian Hakim, which was directly inspired by this. I was actually pretty lucky because I bought this one first dirt cheap from a firearm shop here in Australia. I'll get to that later. And it didn't come with the attachment device, so I called them up and said, yeah, could you mail me one, or can I return this and get another, or something like that. And they were absolutely awesome, and they actually ended up sending me a second one completely free of charge. So that was the best thing in the world for me. Well, not the best thing, but pretty bloody awesome. And then scabbards, just a steel scabbard. I like sort of like the fuller running down the center. Obviously, it's not a fuller for reducing weight, but maybe to add strength. I don't know, but it's a nice little feature you don't really see on scabbards. Nice big ball finale at the bottom. Really high raised frog stud. And then, yeah, the rest is just pretty simple, just a mouth. Exactly what you expect. Now, these came with a number of different kind of leather frogs. From what I can tell, there's 3 or 4 major types. The very early ones have two diagonal flaps. The first one to attach to the scabbard, and the second one to go over the side of the bayonet and retain it. Then the second type is what I have here. You quite often find these with a B pressed into the front here, and I'm not finding any other markings on this particular one, but I'm sure plenty of others out there probably have some kind of markings. I'm not an expert on these frogs, there's so many. Quite a few of them are a bit crude as well. Like this one, it's not the nicest. It's almost like it's inside out, where the polished side of the leather's on the inside and the rough side's on the outside, so it's a bit odd. But then there's a couple other kinds as well, like there's a kind that hangs sort of really, really low and has 2 really high belt loops that sort of separate in the middle. And also a couple of really small, like little short ones too. So I've seen a whole bunch of different kind of frogs for these, and they're pretty common. They don't sell for too much money either. But what makes these bayonets particularly interesting is, in my opinion, the markings, and they have a lot of them. So to begin with, we just have standard proof marks. This is not a great example because the proof mark is kind of mixed with the manufacturer's mark. This one's a bit better. So in terms of proof marks, if this will focus for me, we just have a crown, and you'll find that absolutely everywhere. You'll find it here on the ricasso, you'll find it, focus please, down here on the crossguard, if that will focus and you don't have to take my word for it. And I've seen examples where they've also been on the base of the press stud here. This won't focus, but you're not missing anything because I don't have it here. But then you'll also have it on the inside of the scabbard as well. This one's a bad example because it's Carl Gustaf and has a C underneath it. Now, the second kind of marking you'll find is your manufacturer marking. So they'll come with a 3-digit code, and it'll be on the blade, the crossguard, and the scabbard. And when these bayonets were delivered to units, they were delivered in pieces, and they were to be assembled. So those 3 numbers would be paired up to make sure you've got a matching set and manufactured. So we'll see if we don't actually have a matching set here, but we've got pretty close. So as you can see here on the blade, we've got 093, and then down here on the crossguard, 093, and then you'll also have a number down here on the mouth. This is 793, so it's pretty close, but it's not a match. And also down here on the ball finale, 793. So I assume the mouth would come separate as well from the scabbard. Just at a guess, it might not. The third kind of marking you have is your maker's mark or manufacturer's mark, and I'm pretty lucky because one of my bayonets here has all 3, but generally one maker will make all the components, from what I read. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yep. Anyway, skipping ahead. So the first manufacturer is Carl Gustaf, and well, the first I'm going to go through, and that's literally just your proof crown with a C underneath it. That's a pretty common one. Then the second maker is Eric Anton Berg, and that's just a EAB. And the third maker which is the one I suck at pronouncing. SQL Tuna Jeb manufacturer is, I actually don't have a matching set here, but if this will work for me, you might be able to see that marking there, EJ Anchor AB. Now the anchor does not mean Navy, that's just their manufacturing stamp. You will see a lot of people try to advertise them as Navy or something like that, but no, that's just their stamp. And finally, the last kind of marking you'll find on these is a unit marking. Now, across these two bayonets and two scabbards, none of which are matching, I've only got one unit marking. I read one reference that said they were only marked up until 1901, and then after that they weren't, but don't quote me on that because it wasn't terribly reliable. It wasn't the greatest source in the world. But across what I've got here, I've only got the one marking, and it's not exactly typical of what you would usually find either. So from what I can tell, usually above this line, you'll have the company number. This is L, so that stands for something else. I'll get into that shortly. And below that line, you'll have the regiment number. Now you'll see here we've got I-10. I stands for infantry, and 10 would be the regiment, so the 10th Infantry Regiment. If it was K, it would be cavalry, and I'm sure there's a couple others for different kinds of units I just haven't come across. Next to that, we have number. So that's rifle or rack number, so 44B, and at some stage this one was changed to 193. So whether they've swapped out the rifles or whatever they've done, I don't know. Now you'll see we do have the L here, and that stands for Landstormen. I'm probably mispronouncing that. And that's a Swedish, it's like a National Guard, Home Guard, Reserve Force kind of force. So that's what the L stands for. And on this one, the L is in the place of where you'd expect to see the company details. So here we've got the Landstormen 10 Regiment 44B rifle. I don't know if I've correctly identified that, but that's what I've got. Well, 193 rifle, I don't know. And I don't have those markings on anything else here, which is a shame. Something I don't think I pointed out, you will also have your manufacturer marking down here on the mouth. Both my scabbards are Carl Gustaf, and I don't know if I pointed out, you also have your proof mark down here on the ball finale. Yeah, these bayonets are pretty common. There's a lot of them made. I mean, 665,000 were made. I think 280,000 were made by Externa Jada Manufacture. God, I hate trying to pronounce words like that. I suck at it. I don't know how many made the others, but yeah. But there's a lot of them out there. They're very common. They're reasonably cheap. I mean, even down here in Australia, you can pick them up pretty cheap on eBay. I've been seeing them go for, 120 to 150 very regularly, in good condition, complete with like scabbards and frogs. Down here where bayonets cost a fortune, that's pretty bloody good. That said though, I find them very, very interesting just because of the markings you can get on them. Like, I'm probably still going to keep looking for one if I can find one with just really interesting markings. I'm actually quite a fan of this one here that's marked EAB on the blade, and then I've got the other marking here on the crossguard, and finally a Carl Gustaf scabbard. So I know it's not matching at all. I just love it that I've got all three manufacturers in one blade. That's bloody cool. I picked mine up from Claremont Firearms here in Australia. If you jump online, they're selling them for 105 Australian dollars, which is really cheap. It's a lot cheaper than you're seeing them on eBay at the moment, even though they are pretty common. So I highly recommend you jump online and grab one off them if you're down here. As I said, they really looked after me. The first one came missing the catch, and I wouldn't expect a salesman to look for the catch because it's pretty obscure, the untrained eye. And then they absolutely looked after me when I called up to see if I could get it. I mean, yeah, highly recommend. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. If you have anything to add or I've made any mistakes, feel free to comment below. If you have any interesting unit markings on yours, please comment. I'd love to hear what you've got. Thanks for watching.